This is Block 9, The Liberal Establishment, Section 5, The Cold War Outside of Vietnam, with the section beginning Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger was a German-born Jew, heavily accented. He was an easy guy to caricature, you know, with his glasses and his accent and his kind of poofy hair. Kissinger was a major player in U.S. foreign policy during the Nixon Ford years. He was an incredibly intelligent man, a very sophisticated thinker. Some people said his sophistication spilled over into cynicism. And Kissinger argued that, look, like, ideology has nothing to do with the Cold War. That, yes, the Soviet Union is communist, yes, the United States is democratic, but in reality, that's completely unimportant, Kissinger said. That the real issue here is power. The only thing that matters on the international stage, Kissinger says, is power. Kissinger represents the United States in the peace talks with the North Vietnamese in Paris throughout the course of the Vietnam War. And Nixon's triumph in China, which we're getting to in a moment, and the end of the Vietnam War were really the workings of Henry Kissinger. Him and Nixon had an incredibly close working relationship in foreign policy, and we have to say that despite whatever Nixon's faults were domestically, and he certainly had them, the man was an expert diplomat and quite the international statesman. And so was Kissinger. After his official service in government was over, when Ford lost his election bid to Jimmy Carter, he remained, as he still does today, he's still alive, Kissinger, a respected elder statesman in the American foreign policy debate. And whenever there's big foreign policy things going on, you can always count on Henry Kissinger to write some editorials, to be at the service, at the call of any government leaders who wish to call on his long experience and his still very fertile brain. But Nixon and Kissinger's greatest foreign triumph concerned China. Many Americans looked at the map, and they saw, let's keep it on Kissinger for now, they saw, you know, a big red Soviet Union, red being the color of communism. They saw a big red communist China, and they kind of thought that the Soviets and the Chinese were just a bunch of, you know, yellow-bellied, red, atheist, God-hating, democracy-hating commies, that they were kind of one and the same, that the Soviet Union and China were both these vast communist powers, you know, intent on defeating and weakening the United States. However, this was not the case. That the Soviet Union and China were not buddy-buddy, despite the fact that they were both communist countries. They differed over, you know, technical interpretations of Marx and Lenin, and more importantly than that, they differed over what their goals were internationally. In 1964, to protect itself from the Soviet Union, the Chinese developed its own nuclear arsenal. In 1969, China and the Soviet Union even fought a short but very sharp little war over their border around in Mongolia. That, despite the fact that Americans looked and saw the Soviet Union and China as just one big communist bloc and one big communist menace, the two countries did not like each other. And Nixon very astutely believed that if the United States was to kind of work one side off the other, to play China off against the USSR, and to play the USSR off of China, then he could weaken them both, and thus strengthen the United States. And he wants to do that in general, and he also wants Soviet and Chinese help in pressuring the North Vietnamese back to the negotiating table, because Nixon is desperate to end the war in Vietnam. Kissinger secretly tried. Now, we have to understand something. For Nixon, the arch anti-communist, the person who had made his career, you know, chasing communists and battling communists, for Nixon to be the one to open up China was a shock, a stunning event in world history. But in 1971, in early 1971, Kissinger travels secretly to China, which the United States had no diplomatic relations with. We did not have an embassy or consulates. We had no diplomatic relations with Communist China. From the victory of the Communist Chinese in the Chinese Civil War, we had recognized the Republic of Taiwan as the official government of China. But Kissinger secretly flies to Beijing to lay the groundwork for a presidential visit. In the summer of 1971, Nixon announced to a absolutely shocked world that he had been invited to China and that he would accept the invitation. In February of 1972, with Watergate Watergate beginning to swirl around him, Nixon achieved his greatest success as president. Nixon went to China, where he met the Chinese leader, Mao Zedong, the leader of the Chinese Revolution. He visited with his wife the Great Wall of China. He went to, obviously, a very fancy state dinner where he ate with chopsticks. And they agreed on what was known as the Shanghai Communique. And in this Shanghai Communique, the United States officially recognized Communist China as the official government of China, de-recognized the government in Taiwan, although we continued to support the government of Free China, kind of through back channels. But this was a world-shaking event. All of a sudden, you have the President of the United States, the Premier of Communist China, shaking hands, getting along, having a grand old time. After that, Americans started to visit China, Chinese started to visit the United States, the ping pong team went over there like they showed in Forrest Gump. That relations with China were going to be begun again. And this left somebody out of the game. And the team that it left out of the game was, of course, the Soviet Union. Nixon would then play the Soviet Union off against the Chinese. And he would now take a trip to Moscow.